Hello and welcome to Movie Shorts. I'm Andy Mack and this is episode 2. Thank you for listening to episode 1. I hope that you enjoyed my review of Mickey 17, which is still available for you to download. This podcast is designed to review films in under 10 minutes without giving too much away. In today's episode I will be reviewing the Alto Knights. So let's get straight to it. The Alto Knights is written by Nicholas Pileggi and is directed by Barry Levinson and stars Robert De Niro, who plays both Frank Costello and Vito Genovese. De Niro is supported by Deborah Messing and Catherine Narducci, who play both of the protagonist's wives. The Alto Knights is a gangster/docudrama following the true story of Costello and Genovese, who are both organised crime bosses battling for control of the streets of New York in the 1940s and 50s. The battle is made all the more complicated as they were once best friends. As the film begins in typical gangster movie style, we pick up the story at some point in the timeline, a la Goodfellas, Body in the Trunk, I've always wanted to be a gangster. But then instead of going back to the beginning, we go forwards, and then back, and forwards, and a little bit sideways. And right from the get-go, things are a little bit confusing. To be honest, it took me a while to pick up the characters and who was who. But back to the storyline. The reason for the fallout between Costello and Genovese is straightforward enough, but we just need to rewind to the early 1930s. Both Costello and Genovese at this time worked for Charles Luciano, but Luciano was incarcerated in 1931 for 30 to 50 years in prison. So power went to Genovese, and Costello worked as Genovese's consigliere, his second in command. However, in 1937, Genovese fled to Italy to avoid 2 murder charges. So from prison, Luciano appointed Costello acting boss. Then the Second World War broke out, and so Genovese was stuck in Italy and unable to return. When he did return, things were very different, and Costello had expanded the business. And everyone in the underworld was quite happy with how Costello ran things. But Genovese wanted his position back. And we'll stop there in our storyline. But as I'm sure you can imagine, there's a whole lot of whispering, talking, big coats, grand cars, underhandedness, and a whole lot of swearing embedded throughout the film. And obviously the odd murder or two to keep up with our typical gangster movie. So let's talk about De Niro. As mentioned previously, he plays both Costello and Genovese. Why, I hear you say. I don't know, I cry back. Well, does it work? Well, yes and no. De Niro is a fantastic actor and he plays both parts really well. Genovese and Costello were childhood friends, but as they became older, they became 2 very different characters. Costello living almost like a politician or a wannabe legitimate businessman, working hand in hand with the top brass of the city, whilst Genovese's hanging around at the Alto bar with his henchmen, solving issues by garroting people on rooftops. There are a couple of scenes with both characters sharing the screens, and you do forget, thanks to prosthetic makeup and fantastic acting, that De Niro is playing both parts excellently, I might add, but I still don't actually see the point of it. I understood why Tom Hardy played both Cray twins in Legend. But maybe De Niro had to play both parts, as actually we are coming to the end of the New York gangster movies. Joe Pesci could have come out of retirement once again to play the part of Genovese, which I think he would have played really well. But maybe that might have been a step too far for the audience, only a few years after playing the leading role in another gangster movie in The Irishman. I do want to give a little shout out to Deborah Messing, yes, the actor from Will and Grace, who plays the part of Bobby Costello, Frank Costello's wife. She's very subtle in her role as a mob wife, and she's trying to be as patient as she can whilst we reach the climax to our story. And let's talk about the climax, the final hurrah. Well, there isn't one really. It's more of an end of a chapter of a book, which is true to the story of Costello and Genovese. And there's another problem. If you weren't familiar with this story of Costello and Genovese, at times it can be difficult to follow. I do like true stories in films, but sometimes I didn't know whether I was watching a documentary through the eyes of Costello or a movie itself. The chopping between genres and timeline shifts made things sometimes a little muddled up. In conclusion, I'm glad that I watched this movie. De Niro played both parts really well, and he truly is still a master of his art form. However, I won't be rushing to see the movie again, and I was glad that it was only 2 hours and 3 minutes long. I don't think I could have managed a 3-hour marathon in the style that it was presented in. The Alto Knights. Familiar, stylized, but disjointed. Thank you for listening in to Movie Shorts. Goodbye.